Well, good morning and welcome. As you can see, I'm out with the dogs this morning and it's quite chilly, but it's sunny. So I thought we'd walk and talk today because I've got a slightly different conversation to have. So my name's Sam, for those of you who haven't seen me before, and I'm a nutritional therapist, and my aim is to help women at the mid-years get through the menopause and into older age as successfully as they can. So really coming up with some simple things rather than long-winded descriptions of what to do. So mainly it's to do with nutrition, but there's quite a few lifestyle practices. The wind's quite strong. I hope you can hear me. If not, I'm going to record this again. So my conversation today is slightly different. I had a birthday yesterday and I was 62, and I'm fine with being 62. However, when I turned 60, I wasn't fine with that at all, and this is what I want to talk about. My 59th year, I kept thinking about my next birthday is 60. And for me, when my mother was 60, she retired. She was white grey. I'm going grey, but my hair's still predominantly dark. Just grey sort of around the edges here. And for me, turning 60, was like the gateway to old age. And I wasn't ready for it, and I was really kind of fighting against it inside and felt embarrassed to be that age almost. I'm really not quite sure what it was I felt, but I was so resistant to turning 60. And it's really through my 61st year, going towards 62, I realised that I was coming out of that phase. And I've never had that sort of reaction with any other milestone change in age, but I don't think any other milestone has been like that gateway to old age. Let's just turn away from the light a bit. And it affected me mentally, emotionally, and I wasn't really aware how bad it was until this past year when I started to come out of it. And so really I want to share my story for those who might go through something similar when they reach this milestone. Or maybe you already have. Maybe you've found, let's see, the light is really quite weird. Here we go. Maybe you found that you started to think differently. And I did. I started to think about how can I possibly be doing that at my age? And prior to that, to be honest, I'm pretty fit. I'm probably as fit as a lot of people half my age. I definitely know that some of the people I'm with on a daily basis, I'm fitter than the majority, and that's fantastic. I mean, I've worked for this, so it's great. But I started to see myself as old. I started to think what I would call older thoughts. The first time ever I started to think about retirement, and retirement's 67 now. So, it's still a long way off. And it really it affected me. And I want to say, we do have to be careful about our thoughts, because if we think that we might be ill, we're likely to be ill. I got wet last week. Do have a sniffle coming. But if we think ourselves well, quite likely we could become well. And this is quite a common belief. Probably science around this as well. I haven't actually checked. But we can think ourselves into a particular situation. I mean, we had a friend whose grandfather died at the age of 54, and his father died at the age of 54, and he was absolutely convinced that he would also die at the age of 54. Sadly, he died at the age of 55. But I remember saying to him at the time, you've got to stop thinking like this, because how you live your life is what makes the difference, not the age. It doesn't have to be the same. your grandfather had different experiences to you in health, as did your father. But he was so convinced, and I feel very strongly that sometimes we can think ourselves into a particular situation, and I was thinking myself into being an older person. Well, I am an older person, but behaving like and thinking like, and now I'm excited about the future, and I've got so many projects I want to do, which I've mentioned before, sort of creative things. I always think it's never too late to change the course of what you want to do, and I mean, in my 30s I thought I did textiles as my degree, and I thought I was too old to change direction, but I did in my late 40s, and became a nutritional therapist, which I have thoroughly enjoyed over the last 11 years. But maybe I'll change again. But I do want to share what I've learned, because I think it's powerful stuff, and it doesn't take too much to make a difference. So, what difference am I making now? Well, I've started to think, as I was thinking prior to turning 60, I am now thinking more like a 50-something, although I have to say I still think I'm sort of in my, I suppose, 40s in many ways. I've got quite a few connections who are in the 40s, and I don't see myself as being any different to them. But yeah, I think it's important to become aware of how we think, and I cannot be the only person who approached their 60th year feeling as though it's the beginning of the end. And it doesn't need to be that way, because if one of my aims is to live to 100 in good health. Well, who knows the years yet? It's considerable amount of time, and if I start thinking as an older person, or that I am old and decrepit, putting those two together, that things are declining, blah blah blah, then that is likely to happen. If I start to think about, well, actually I'm fit, I'm able to get out and walk the dogs up a hill, the problems with my fingers are in hand, excuse the pun, I don't have, although I've got this, as I say, undiagnosed osteoarthritis, my hands aren't painful. Occasional, if I'm not careful with what I do and I antagonise it and create some inflammation, but otherwise they're not painful. And as I mentioned last week, I have seen an improvement in the nail beds of my right hand. So I just want to say, if you're having thoughts about, oh my goodness, I'm going through the menopause, that's the end of fertile years, or I'm heading towards 60, or even another milestone, 70, and things are looking like that slippery slope. If you're thinking that way, please pull yourselves up, as I didn't realise I was doing it. I was aware, but I didn't realise how much I was doing it. But this year I've really become aware of the difference in my thought process. I suppose it might be a thing we have to go through. But please think about what you're capable of doing and how much excitement there is up there, how much there is to look forward to. I mean, I'm excited. I woke up in the night thinking about making Christmas wreaths. I'm going to make some to raise money for one of the local schools, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited about covering some chairs that the dogs have absolutely wrecked, and I'm so embarrassed to take people in the sitting room because these chairs are really quite disgusting. I may show you, I'm not sure. But please pull yourself up on those thoughts and start to think about all the things that are really good, and how do you want to live these next years of your life? How many years do you really want? And if you've got I don't have grandchildren, I don't have children. And I've come to terms with that. I came to terms with that when I went through the menopause. I was able to let go of the, I suppose, a sense of desperation. Not having had children, I really kept thinking, is it ever going to happen? But once I went through the menopause, I was able to say to myself, it's not happened. You can live your life and help others in theirs. I've always felt that if I wasn't having children, there was another reason for me being here. And maybe I can help others in some sort of more sort of prominent way that I couldn't have done if I'd had children. So that's kind of one of the things that it's not so strong in my psyche now, but it was very strong all those years when I wasn't having children. So anyway, I got over that. I'm fine with not having children. One has to look after oneself. In any state, if I had children, you can't rely on children to look after you in old age. So I want to encourage you to think about all those wonderful things you want to do, all those years you have ahead of you. How many years do you want? Well, I really want to get to 100 at least, healthy. And think about what there is to look forward to, like Christmas and seeing people at that time of year, seeing people you haven't seen for a long time, and the joy it brings you. And for me, just being out here, look, if we just turn around in the countryside, that's going up the hill into the woods, my babies, my doggies. I had to tell somebody the other day when I spoke about my babies, and that's where we've come from. I was talking about my dogs, they thought I had children. I talked about my girls, they thought I had 2 daughters, but no, my fur babies. Anyway, I hope that's given you some food for thought. Don't think yourselves into old age, please. Think how wonderful things are right now. And Molly, baby, don't go too far. Wait for me. We've got a little driveway to cross, and I don't like them crossing it in case of farm traffic. Anyway, I hope to see you soon. If you thought this was interesting, do let me know whether you have these thoughts about being old, and or any sort of thought process that might not be serving you, because and if you hadn't realised you're doing this as well, I hope this has helped you to find a way to turn that around. So thank you for joining me. The sunlight's lovely, but it's there we go. I hope to see you again soon, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye bye.